we're going to go to questions now. There are some roving mics. If you raise your hand as a roving mic comes to you, I'll ask the first question from our British Library entrepreneur in residence, Julie Dean. So if somebody raises their hand while that's happening, I'll go to the first question. Do raise your hand if you want to ask Mary anything whatsoever. Oh, there's this lady here.
He's sitting down having a coffee. What are you doing?
So, our entrepreneur in residence is Julie Dean, the founder of the Cambridge Satchel Company, a company I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yes.
Julie has submitted a question that she'd love your thoughts on. It's very businessy. Should businesses concentrate on growing themselves in their home market before casting their eyes overseas? This is quite pertinent to the Cambridge Satchel Company because this is where things went wonky for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Cambridge Satchel were great business. But I think, yes, because I think especially something where it's culturally connected to that time. So something like the Cambridge Satchel Company, you're selling something that's really connected to a British culture and a way of life. So, and I've seen this with many businesses that have launched and done well in their own country and then gone globally, lost the local market, but because they're making money in, say, Japan, they keep feeding that market, and then slowly but surely it erodes the brand and its power. So I think you really have to, and likewise, I've seen many brands go internationally and haven't really connected culturally with that local market, thinking they can just spread a brand out and that you don't need to understand the nuances, and there are many nuances on brands and why they connect emotionally with people across the country, so across the world rather. So yes, I think it's vitally important, especially in a country like the UK, which has huge credibility when it comes to brands. I would be pushing that as much as you possibly can.
It's interesting, you're talking about identity again, aren't you? You're talking about the identity of a brand, as you were talking about personal identity. Okay, over to you.
Okay. I was surprised to read in a women's magazine recently about imposter syndrome, that we're still talking about that. And I've been working for about 40 years and been fairly successful, and had a new boss recently, a new male boss, and it actually made me feel like after 40 years I'd been rumbled until I talked myself out of that. So I just wondered, do you still feel that we're sort of experiencing that, and that women feel that they've still got imposter syndrome, or that we're somewhere where we don't deserve to be? I was just surprised to read about it recently, that it's still a thing even.
It's a huge thing, I think. Do you ever suffer from imposter syndrome?
I don't.
I don't.
I think I am particularly unusual. I mean, my wife always says to me, oh, for God's sake. I don't, but I think it's very different for me. I am in a position where with my agency, my own profile, I'm able to manage that. It's imposter syndrome. That person made you feel that you weren't great. I just think that's shit management. And that can happen anywhere. I've had that. I will have it in situations where you feel uncomfortable, someone else is taking the power and just taking it away from you. And it can be done implicitly, it can be done subtly, it can be done completely not subtly. So I think men suffer with it too, if I'm honest. I think what that is just not good management, and that is someone who is not getting the best from you. And I've seen that in many businesses. I've seen incredible clients that we've worked with have to leave business, and you think, what's happened there? They were great. Someone has made them feel that way. That's why I try and spread. We don't have one person in control, because that is a terrible way to end someone's career or their belief in themselves. I think it is particularly, I've read actors talking about it as well, but I don't think it's particularly just for women. I don't. But I think maybe women talk more about it because they're easier to feel that I'm feeling vulnerable rather than men maybe talking about it.
Thank you. And the good thing was I worked through it. I worked through it, so I didn't.
Well, I think there was a thing that I did in the Sunday Times. They do this back page in Sunday Times Style, and I answered a question. Is he going? Oh, bye, darling. Bye. And I answered a question on It was a woman who was just it's that subtle bullying of an email not including them
Yes.
when they're working on something.
Just edging out.
Just that edging out, and it's very difficult to say, or just inviting them not into a meeting, or it's just having a subtle conversation with someone else and they've been alienated. The thing is, you have to call it out. Because the minute you say to someone, I'm feeling uncomfortable, you are putting that onus back onto them. Now, there's two ways that can be dealt with. I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I've been doing really well. I don't know why, but I'm feeling uncomfortable because of this, this, this. They then have to come back at you. Now, he can go, oh, I didn't think that. I didn't think that about you. I think you're great. Fine, then show me. Or they do have to do something about it. Oh, I didn't know I was doing that. I'm sorry, I do think you're good. Or third, yeah, I don't think you're that great. Then work it through with me properly. But I think unless you call it out, unless you pick it up, a lot of that goes on.
Very common, I think, to be blocked by a person who you think doesn't like you or doesn't appreciate you. So you've taken that structure away.
You just move that away. But you can, if the structure is still on a one-to-one, you have to go in because it's just so stressful.
Hello, just up here. Coming. Hold the line, please, caller.
Thank you very much. Mary, you talked about banks and the paternity leave that they're giving, very innovative, and I think with regards, there's a lot of good work about women going back to work. I work in finance, and the thing is that there's a massive problem on the other side, which is women don't make 80% of purchase decisions when it comes to finance. Do you think in empowering more women in finance and working in finance and that empathy and that EQ, do you think that will help women actually feel more engaged with things like that? And because most people tell me it's just boring, but actually we all know it's really, really important. You talked about money being important. It's not everything, but it is important. So do you think we can change some of that? Because it's so different in finance.
Are you talking about women going into work in finance or taking the responsibility for finance within their family or within
taking
their
responsibility for finance?
So buying financial products.
Financial products, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to sound, everyone's going to groan if I start talking about it, but things like pensions or other, I know, but it's important. And you're talking about empowering people.
No, it is important because what you're saying is, and I do listen to you on that, because I actually mention this in the book, that women can be as bad in situations like this, where they sort of let the man pick that up. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. They split the roles, and those really important things are invariably being looked after by men. So I think that is important. I think how you get more women into finance is look at the ways that Jaguar Land Rover did, which was brilliant. They realised that not many young women were coming into work in engineering or into the car industry. And that also men who were in the car industry, they stayed in it because it was just such, they loved working within the car. So all that middle management was stuck there, all that senior management. And they looked and they thought, my God, it's going to be a lifetime before we shift this. So they just made a conscious decision to bring 50% of the employees that they were going to bring in right at the beginning were going to be women, and they've done a phenomenal shift in that. So I do think it's vitally important that you do empower. Listen, we talk about power. One of the things that I realised is unless we get into positions of power, and let's face it, money is power, finance is power, unless we do, we have very little influence on what happens, as Sally said, to our National Health Service, to our schools. If we leave that, the same with politics, unless those cultures are shifted to bring women in, we are not sitting in the places of power. We only have to go back in history to the church that just screwed it all for us lot. No, it is. Look at that's where power... Oh, I've gone. Someone cut me off. It was God. It was God. Did you? Sorry, it's the Catholic upbringing. Jesus Christ, that I rejected very early on, let me tell you. But that happened. Women were suppressed by the church. That energy in the world has just been pushed aside. And that was where power was held. not as much today, but we have technology, politics. And when there was one part in the book when I went into Downing Street, and with Jeanette Winterson, we were moaning on about something together, and I thought, well, we'll go in, the pair of us, and we're like bashing heads, and it was the call for a vote, and it was all these MPs were running through the corridors, and I said to Jeanette, let's just count how many women, and there was 19 women, and I think we got to like 200, and we were bored by the time there's so many men. And really, the reason why women aren't in there is because of the toxic culture, the fact that it was 7:30 at night, they wouldn't be doing the vote, they need to be home. So you need to look at those businesses, we need to look at the structures of them and say, what will bring women in? And we need to educate women who just say, let's hand that over to the men.
But I wonder if it's a chicken and egg, in that if women don't ever see women dealing in finance but on the other side of the desk, you think it's a man's world. I just bought a new car from a woman, and I visited various showrooms, and the one where the woman tried to sell me the car is the one I went with because it just felt more relevant. And so if all the people selling financial products are men, then I guess women would think it was a man's domain.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, you kind of need to see it back at you, don't you?
Lady up there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's having his cup of tea again, he loves it. Sits down, he goes, oh, got that
And
one.
then after that, this lady in the orange here.
Hello.
Hello, hi. Positive discrimination and quotas. You've been touching upon this. My daughter's sitting beside me. She's doing mechanical engineering. But people say, oh, well, you only got into mechanical engineering because you're a woman and they help, help the women. My son's trying to do maths and computer science and that side of things, and he couldn't get into the courses and things that they were offering because they were female only. So it's quite hard when you're offering the quotas and doing that without skewing things and not offering on a sort of meritocracy.
Look, listen, I'm with you on this, and that's why I don't think it is about quotas. I think it's about changing, and I go back again, the culture and the structure of that, because that positive discrimination, this has been done purely because we are in a real state here, that there are so few women. And I don't think we've properly looked at what the issues are. This has to start right from grassroots, from children understanding what they can be and where they can be. We wouldn't then get into stages of positive discrimination. I'd love to say it's not needed. It kind of is to get us through, to get some shift changing. I guess that's what happened with, Land Rover. They had to say, do you know what 50% we're going to have to make females to get through? But I think it is tough on young men. I think it is. But hopefully what they will start to see is that this has been ridiculously tough on women for far too long. But I answer the question on that is, let's change the way we work. Let's change the culture of work so that we don't have to do quotas and positive discrimination.
Yeah, I don't think it does the women good either.
You don't what?
I don't think it helps the women either, in many senses, because it undermines what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, they think they haven't properly achieved that. They've been put forward. And of course, none of it does, but we've got a big bloody job on our hands.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, in the workplace, because we all think, well, the best person for the job should get the job. But what makes the best person for the job? Experience, qualifications. Well, if that experience is largely given to men, how will women ever? It's not a level playing field. So we can only have a meritocracy if it's all equal from the start, right? Which, as you say, it isn't.
Yeah.
Lady in the orange, and then we'll come to you.
Hiya, good evening. I work in construction and manufacturing, and I have a predominantly, it's a family business, and we have a predominantly male workforce. And emotion in the workplace is my family business, but because it's been run by a man, my father, for many, many years, showing emotion in the workplace has been a very sort of stiff upper lip, oh, that shouldn't happen. And was very, very interested in the culture, the values that you were talking about, and I'd very much like to be able to change the culture. And I'm making small inroads, but I'd just like some advice or some recommendations about how you would look at bringing more emotion into the workplace.
Well, it is in the book. Buy the book. No, it is in the book. But it's interesting because one of the examples that I put in the book was an oil rig, where then you can show this to your father. And bless him, you know, he's done it the way that he's known, you know. So this oil rig workers, I can't find the example on what page it is.
Sad, that bit.
It was wonderful. And basically, I looked at real male institutions where they made change happen like that as well. And, it was all around safety. I can't remember absolutely the details of the but the whole oil rigs was about the most macho. And they were really having, you know, serious issues that were having over safety. So they switched the emphasis on it being around macho and put these codes into place that were based around safety and put these female sort of caring for your colleagues rather than you being seen as the most brave, and it shifted the
And they
whole...
stopped punishing for false alarms, didn't
Yeah,
they?
they
That was
stopped,
the other key.
yeah, exactly. If there was a false alarm, they punished, but they stopped all that and actually made them more honest and open about the way that they worked. And it had an incredible response on it. So there are lots of... There's one of my favourites was the male, Swedish male football team. And they weren't particularly a great football team. They were all made up of people that didn't quite make it into the Premier League or the top leagues or whatever. And all the blokes would turn up when they wanted, and, you know, they were slightly sort of despondent. And the manager said, I'm not doing it anymore. Stuffed a lot of you. And then one night he got a knock at the door and this guy said, I've had to go back on the building site, it's killing me. Could you start up the team again? And they pulled together another few and he said, all right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you, it's not just about winning the game, it's not just about aggression, I'm going to make you do different things. So he made them all put on a performance at Swan Lake. He gave them all these different novels to read that were just, you know, some really, I think, Anna Karenina, culturally opened them, took them to art galleries. I kid you not, they beat Arsenal. It was wonderful. Now, not this English team now we've got, because I think, what's his name, did a great job. I was so proud of them in England.
Southgate.
Yeah, Southgate with his little waistcoat on.
Love him.
I think he was really understood, you know, how to get these guys. But look back at our England team, when it was full of the Beckhams and the Rooneys and these individual egos that went out. And I read a thing in the Times when this guy reported on this, and I thought, this is so interesting. And the sports writer remembers them going out to South Africa, and I think it was one of the leaders in South Africa was enabled a meeting with Mandela and got them all this meeting to meet the England team, because Mandela loved his rugby and his football. Only half of them turned up to meet Mandela.
Oh, that's a shocker.
Yeah. Well, it's about winning, isn't it? So there's lots of examples within there that can show this, and I think you do it with an openness with your father and just trying things. That's what it's about, it's trying. I'm not even completely, we make cock-ups still in business, but it's about just looking and trying and creating things that just make people feel that they can be who they truly want to be, and that will get the best out of them. They don't have to be these macho. Half of them will love you for it in the end.
It's very true, actually. Gareth Southgate does embody the
Doesn't
philosophy
he
in
just?
this book. That's
He so
that's
does.
such a good
I'd
point.
love to meet him. I thought he's done an
He's
extraordinary job. I was so proud of the England team. For the first time in I don't know how long.
So we
My
have
life.
a couple of questions from social media.
There's been lots of great comments and lots of questions coming through our Twitter hashtag. And first question I'll put to is from a lady called Sarah King watching in Nottingham Library tonight. And
Nottingham.
asked you, do you think that women will wait whilst organisations catch up, or will more women create their own tribes and their own businesses, start more businesses?
Oh, it's the biggest thing. Women are starting up businesses. The business group is now women entrepreneurs. I think it's grown hugely.
And women
and very
of colour
fast.
too.
And women of colour even more.
Yeah.
The minority groups that are saying, I can't get in there, can't break the codes, sod it, I'll do my own thing. So it is a massive growing thing. But, you know, here's the thing. What I love is when we look at the amount of businesses, everybody thinks, oh, my business won't change. There are something, I don't know the stat, but the majority of businesses in this country are small, medium-sized businesses that can make that change happen. So women are out there just doing their own things. And I think with the internet and digital world, they're able to do that. So I think we're going to see this happen so much quicker.
Do you have another one from Sophie?
Yes.
Oh, she's
I'm
got one
coming
up there.
to you. Do you want to go first? No, it's
Yeah,
it's
go
Mike
on,
is coming
stand
to
up
you.
and use your voice.
Let's do you and come back to social media. Be with
Okay.
you. Go ahead. Do you have the mic? Okay, there you go. I didn't know if it had made it to you yet.
Are you going to shout at me?
No.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about women and taking risks in business, because I've kind of, after working in criminal justice for many years and then becoming an author, and now got my own little tiny, weeny little business, there are financial risks that have to be taken all the time in terms of publicity and marketing and putting money into it, which I often haven't got, but it's worth it because of the returns. And I find that maybe it's a generational thing, I don't know, maybe it's all women of all ages, that women have much more difficulty taking risks than men do.
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I thought you were going to say that banks lending money are much more risk averse when it comes to women, and there are stats on that. That is quite true. And I just was on the conference with Telegraph Women in Business where they were finding out lots of startups and entrepreneurs were just not getting the funding that was
So men are more likely to secure a loan and finance. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've seen lots of women take risks in business. I think, you know, the thing is, it's all about a calculated risk, isn't it? It's about thinking, do I believe in what I've got to sell here? Yes, I do. Do I believe I'm a great writer? Do I believe I'm going to get the sales on this? Yes, I do. Therefore, those risks need to be taken. And I think, you know, women invariably are maybe more balanced in their risk. It's what I talk about is courage rather than bravery. You know, the two are quite different. When you say risk, is it a risk that, you know, goes into a danger zone, or is it a good, positive risk where you know the outcome, you give yourself a time that if I don't get the returns on this, then I pull out? I don't know. I've seen a lot of women take a lot of risk in business. I think it's quite. I think it's quite equal. I don't know what else to say on that one, really.
Let's have another from social media, then we can probably squeeze one more in if you want to raise your hand. Go ahead.
Okay, so the question I'll put forward is from a company called the Real Junk Food Project, who are watching up in Glasgow Library tonight. And they've asked, how do you switch off from work as they're struggling to find that balance themselves right now?
Well, there's a bottle of wine in there, isn't there? So,
Yeah.
Oh God, I try not to think about work at the weekends. I mean, look, come on, I'm a bit older now, but I don't work at the weekend. We have an agreement that nobody emails over the weekend to each other throughout the business, unless it's something positive that you want to say. I think there's nothing worse than looking, you know, and getting, you say, oh, it's okay, I'm on holiday, you can let me know. The last thing that you want is to see anything negative or worrying. That just pulls your energy down and drains you. So I have a very clear rule that we don't do that. I think, I mean, look, I walk into my house and it's like Paddy's Market with kids. So I easily turn off. That certainly brings you right back down to earth. You have to deal with that, and you have to be very present in doing that. And also, I like rest. I mean, it's nothing to, you know, I need rest. I need it to be good. And I know that I need that. And I'm not very good on 4 hours sleep and working like that. It just doesn't make me best. So I make sure that I put rest into my day, and I make sure I put care for myself, whether that's just a walk, or even sometimes at the agency I just walk around the block and down Lamb's Conduit Street and just look into the shop windows or chat to people and move myself outside that headspace. Those are really small, and I meditate, and I try, and even, you know, when I'm going very busy in work, I have motorbikes that drive me around when I'm filming, and It's just the most wonderful meditative thing. I just sit on the bike and the guy goes, do you want to talk or not, Mary? I go, no, I don't want to talk. And that 20 minutes from wherever I'm going from is my time just to completely connect and rest. And I also make sure mischief and fun's in my day where I have a laugh and so that my team always do the same. We laugh. And I think laughter just really feeds the soul and rests you and takes you outside this. My God, let's just not be so bloody serious. Like, life is just so serious sometimes. And you can make money and have a laugh.
Well, before we have mischief and fun in the bar, there is one last question at the back of the hall. Hi, a mic is coming your way. Thank you for your patience. I could hardly see you at the back there, I'm sorry.
Firstly, thank you very much. It's been really motivating and inspiring, so thank you. In the spirit of using my voice, I just wanted to sort of challenge a little bit on the point about calling things out, because I watched the recent coverage about Sir Philip Green with interest, and there was this sense in the coverage that there was kind of a criticism of people that knew it was bad and let it go and didn't say anything and didn't raise it, and there was almost, kind of negativity about that. Whereas the reality is, even if you're in a workplace and you're following people like yourselves and reading your books and you know how you want things to be, the truth is it's really difficult to call it out if you're trying to keep your job so that you can pay the nanny. And I just wondered, recognising that that is the truth of it, like what else could we be doing? Like, have you got any other tips for what we could be doing to try and make the working world better if actually, for whatever reason, we don't feel like we can walk into our boss or our boss's boss and say, this isn't an acceptable way to operate?
Look, it's the most difficult thing, of course it is. Imagine going into Philip Green and saying you're a knob, mate, and calling it out.
Quite.
You know, there's lots of questions that we have to ask ourselves, and you're right, there's that fear. That's the fear, and they know that fear. They know the fear. And we've all been in. I've had it completely done to me. And I thought, I genuinely will not be able to afford the mortgage. Of course I've had it done. But I think that the more we are able to connect with our peer groups and our tribes and say, how do we get together? Now, I think the Philip Green story, I would have gone into the human resources department and spoken to them on that and just said, this is really affecting the team. And if they are refusing to do something about it, there comes a time when you say, is this good for me? Is this making me feel good? Am I able to be the best that I am? And is this making me happy? And I would have been looking for jobs elsewhere to move outside that if you felt that you couldn't have talked about it or opened up the debate on it. The more we keep it in, of course it's bloody difficult, but that's where their power is. That is where their power is. And the more we keep quiet about this, the worse it will get. And here's the thing, that being called out by someone blowing a whistle on it, by Jane Shepherdson talking openly and saying, I bloody saw that shit. The more that is called out, the more it will open the doors for you guys, and the more fear will be in those corporations. And that's the only way we're going to make it happen.
And always demand an exit interview, I would think, if you are leaving, to make sure that you have your exit interview and get it down.
Absolutely. And the other thing is going for another job, tell the truth. Just say, I left. Don't try and cover it. I left because of the culture and I felt this. You know, I tell the truth on that so that you are, and you will get other work. But there is that fear of the unknown, and that's what keeps them all in those positions of absolutely hierarchical bullying power.
Thanks for your questions. Thanks for all your questions. Mary will be doing a signing in the foyer. There's also a bar, more importantly, in the foyer. But in the meantime, thank you so much for coming to the British Library, and thank you to Mary Portas.
Thank you.